My copy is a bit funky and it's got some horrible things on it. So if it's a book you'll want to keep by your side at all times, maybe not at all times, that'd be a bit boring. Novels and Novolia. Is Novolia even a term? It's ringing me. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you my top 10 favourite sales books that are going to help you improve and increase your sales. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Sales Circle podcast. This is your podcast designed to help you increase and improve your sales. Whether you're a salesperson, sales professional, entrepreneur, business owner, whatever it is, this podcast will help you to sell more. And hello, my name is Rob Spence. I'm your host and I'm looking forward to today's episode. Now, I want to be really clear on something. There is no script. There is no flow. There are no listeners' questions. I'm just going to share with you my top 10 favorite sales books. They are going to be in no particular order. I'm not going to rank them, 10 to 1 or anything else in between. These are just top 10 of my favorite books. There's two reasons why I wanted to share this with you. A couple of reasons, actually. One, you should know by now, I believe that studying as a salesperson, a marketer, a business owner is the most crucial thing that you could do. Beyond that, I put a post out yesterday talking about the need on LinkedIn. And although I say yesterday, I've recorded this well in advance. And lots of people came back and said, oh, what books would you recommend? So I think this is a good time to share them. And thirdly, this still makes me laugh. Go on over to YouTube to see this comment. Someone thinks that this is a green screen. Someone thinks that all of this is a green screen. They thought that this is all here just to make me look more intelligent and more clever than I am, which isn't hard. But no, it's a real bookcase. Every book that you see behind me and on this bookshelf down here and on this bookshelf down here, albeit there's not many books on there, I've read, I've ingested, I've digested every single book that is on those shelves, simply because I strongly believe that if we study, we do better. If we do better, we help our customers better. If we help our customers better, we make more sales. And for me, it all started with one book. It started with a book that at the time, believe it or not, I felt I could not afford. Yeah, you heard that correct. I thought that I could not spare the disposable income. And look now, we've got array. I don't even know how many books there are, hundreds, maybe 1,000, potentially. I don't know. There's a lot of books there. And I'm going to show you my top 10. It was very hard to choose this top 10. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Literally just 10 minutes before I sat down to record this, I was staring at the bookcase, staring at the bookshelf, thinking, I don't know. I don't know. I had to look at it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and it's really hard to pick out 10 of my favourite and best books because all of them bring some value to the table. So listen, without further ado, shall we crack on with today's episode? Before we do move on, actually, make sure you hit that follow button. Make sure you're subscribed if you're watching over on YouTube. So, in no particular order, let's start with book 1. The first book is Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Now, for those of you that do read and have had some good sort of knowledge around books, especially within the business world, you'll recognise that this is part of the 1 Minute Manager series, or at least part by the best-selling author, I should say, of the 1 Minute Manager. Now, this is not particularly a sales-based book per se. This book was recommended to me, a good friend of mine, Patrick, who was a sales director of a fantastic ice cream company. And he recommended I read this many years ago, and I did, and I absolutely loved it. In full transparency, I could pretty much recommend any of the 1 Minute Manager series. There's the 1 Minute Manager, the 1 Minute Salesperson up here. There's a book down here called Gung Ho, I believe, who's part of the sort of franchise somehow. I'll be honest, the whole who wrote what gets very confusing when it comes to the 1 Minute Manager series. But Who Moved My Cheese is an amazing way to deal with change in your work and in your life. And the reason I recommend this, or, any of the 1 Minute series, is because change happens a lot, in particular within sales. Okay, sometimes our product or service can change, our prospects can change, our business as a whole can change. And when we're trying to sell, sometimes that can distract us, that can become very distracting, it can become very noisy and take us away from what we need to sell. And of course, with any change comes some emotional reaction, some form of emotional reaction to some degree. And Who Moved My Cheese was a fantastic read. As you can see, it's not a massive book, you know, and look, the pages are written so easily. You know what, you're going to smash this in an hour, give or take. Let me just read the blurb to you. Let me read the blurb. Who Moved My Cheese is a simple parable that reveals profound truths. It is an amazing and enlightening story of 4 characters who live in a maze and look for cheese to nourish them and make them happy. Cheese is a metaphor for what you want to have in life, whether it be a good job, a loving relationship, money, or a possession, health, or a spiritual peace of mind. And the maze is where you look for what you want, the organisation you work in, or the family or community you live in. The profound book from best-selling author Dr. Spencer Johnson will show you how to anticipate change, adapt to change quickly, enjoy change, and be ready to change quickly again and again. So, as I mentioned, it's not in particular a sales book. This is not going to help you close more sales. It's not going to help you overcome objections or anything like that. However, I feel that from a business point of view, that from an employee point of view at times, we're going to deal with change. We're going to go through change. We're going to go through those motions. Who Moved My Cheese helps us to anticipate that change, but also move with the times of that change as well. Now, the second book I'd like to bring your attention to, once again, potentially isn't necessarily a sales book per se, but is a fantastic way to enhance your mindset, give you different ways at looking at the world, the universe, the economy, how we develop wealth. And I'll be honest, is a book that you would have heard of. I've no doubt. My copy is battered because I've read it a few times, and to be fair, it was a second-hand book, so I'm sure it's been well read as well. The book I'm going to recommend next is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I can never say his surname. I do apologize. Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki has become on to be a fantastic author, speaker, keynote speaker, and someone who's bloody rich, an investor as well. And what Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in my opinion, talks about is how rich people become rich and maintain that wealth, and how poor people have a poor mindset and they stay poor. And what the book talks about is a story, whether it's true or not, I'm never too sure. Robert's real dad had a poor mindset. He had a poor way of thinking. However, his best friend's dad was rich and had a rich mindset and had a rich way of thinking. And Robert kind of compares the two mindsets, compares the two stories, mixed with telling us how we can become rich. So I'll read some of the blurb. I think I should just read the blurb of each of the books, really. Robert Kiyosaki teaches people to be millionaires. That's why they call him the millionaire school teacher. He goes on to say, the main reason people struggle financially is because they've spent years in school but learn nothing about money. The result is that people learn to work for money but never learn to have money work for them. I think that quote in itself really tells you what the book's all about here. So in the book, you will explode the myth that you need to earn a high income to become rich. Challenge the belief that your house is an asset. Show parents why they can't rely on the school system to teach their kids about money. Define once and for all what an asset is and a liability. Teach you what to teach your kids about money for their future financial success. I think I read that a bit weirdly. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's gone on to be published many, many times. And I think, there's been many editions throughout the years. I think there's been some subsequent books as well. And look, as a really brief synopsis, and I think Robert said it in that little quote there, what Robert's really good at within the book is teaching you to use money to help you make more money, how to invest wisely, but also how money can work for you if you invest in the right things and investing in assets that pay you. And I think one story, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if I've said this wrong, the book goes on to talk about how, a rich person, if they want a new car, they won't go and buy a new car. They'll buy an asset that will then pay for that car. And then they accumulate this wealth and build and compound on top of that. So again, not necessarily a sales book. However, when it comes to business, it's a great book to read. When it comes to personal wealth, it's a great book to read. It also teaches, in my opinion, how sometimes we can work smarter and not necessarily harder as well. Don't worry, we do have a sales book coming up right now. Now, this book is called, I can never say it correctly, I'm rubbish with pronunciation at times, Crossing the Chasm. Now, this is a well-known sales and marketing book, especially anyone working in software sales. You will hear Crossing the Chasm over and over again. My copy is a bit funky, and it's got some horrible things on it. So I'm sure it's had loads of, additions since. But everyone I speak to when it comes to sales and software sales, they always recommend this book. Because, of course, I had to pick up a copy. And it's written by Jeffrey A. Moore. And I'll read a bit of the blurb for you. It's a business phenomena, apparently, a landmark book that defines and models a pattern of market development. Since the first edition was published in 1991, thousands of leading high-tech brands have come to rely on Jeff Moore's insights into each stage of technology adoption lifestyle. None of the proven success principles have changed. Companies are gambling fortunes and countless hours of technical talent on marketing technology products, and too many fail when they don't need to. The new item, whether a new generation of computer, a digital video disc, or a cellular phone, is greeted rapturously by a few adventurous consumers, only to fizzle out in the wider marketplace. And what the book talks about, again, I don't think, if memory serves me right, it doesn't necessarily say this is how you close someone, this is how you overcome this objection, this is how you use questioning techniques. But what the book talks about in a lot of detail is the adoption life cycle and how we can use that to our best ability. And this, for you marketers, and hey, my editors who are editing this up, I do recommend reading this book. It talks about the different life cycles of a new product launch, a new software launch, a new service launch, and how that hits the target audience sectors, right? So it talks about innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards, and how that cycle needs to be maintained and managed and marketed in the correct ways to get the best results. So for me, this book was fantastic to help me understand a bit more about how we can use mindset and marketing strategies to push products, services, and everything else in between. It's quite an intense book. It's very, very thick, very knowledgeable. Loads of great, loads of great terms, loads of great quotes, loads of great knowledge within here. If you are selling any form of product or service, whether it is software or, a solid entity, read this and understand that life cycle. Once you do, marketing and selling your products or services becomes so much easier. We move swiftly on to a favourite author of mine, and there's a few books you can maybe just see if you're watching over on YouTube. I think it's these here. Some lovely coloured spines here. I think I've got some duplicates as well. I'm going to recommend a book by Jeffrey Gitomer. Now, if you do watch any of my work, you'll know that I'm a big, big fan of Jeffrey Gitomer as a sales trainer, sales author, and a sales coach. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And not only do I think he's fantastic, but Ken Blanchard, the co-author of The 1 Minute Manager, of whom one book we've already kind of shared today, says that if it's a book you'll want to keep by your side at all times. Maybe not at all times, that'd be a bit boring. But I'm going to recommend the Sales Bible today. Now, Jeffrey Gitomer has released and published an array of books. Like I said, I'm sure it's them just there. Yeah, it is. And I do, to be fair, I recommend them all. I do recommend them all. But I picked out the Sales Bible because it encompasses quite a lot of Jeffrey's knowledge. But the Sales Bible is the ultimate sales resource. It says this single volume contains the information you need to convert leads into appointments, presentations into sales, sales into customers for life, which is exactly what we want to do with all of our customers, right? As I said, oh God, I didn't even know that was in the book. It's like little cue cards that I can cut out and put on my desk. How cute is that? It's a fantastic book. What I love about Jeffrey is he really gamifies his books and he breaks things down. The layout and the format's always dead easy to read. So if you are new to any kind of studying or learning or revising, you don't have to kind of, really heavily invest. You can break it down into smaller chunks. But again, in the interest of fairness, let's look at what the blurb says. So it goes on to say, salespeople are looking for one thing, answers. In the Sales Bible, Jeffrey Gitomer describes methods and techniques that really work every day in real-world selling situations. Carry it with you, overcome objections as they happen, read one short chapter in the Sales Bible and watch your sales results improve immediately. And it does go on to say that it includes the 39.5 ways to sales success, top-down selling, 25 ways to get the appointment that has eluded you, 19.5 Buying Signals, real-world advice on working a room and building your network, how to fill your sales pipeline with prospects ready to buy, how to use the right questions to make more sales in half the time, 10 great cold call opening lines, how to find the hot button and push it once you find it, and hundreds of techniques and sales methods to help you get the toughest buyer to say yes, which as salespeople is pretty much everything that we need. And there's high praise. There's absolute high praise here for Jeffrey. You know, we've got Brian Tracy, who's a fantastic sales trainer, sales author. You got Jim Cathart, you got Ken Blanchard on here. Anyone else I recommend or recognize? Sorry, there's loads on here, but another fantastic book. Although it be a hefty book, like I say, it's always an easy read when it comes to Jeffrey Gitomer. So do go grab a copy. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna keep moving through. Now this book, I read this years ago. I first read this 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago potentially, and it's become one of my most favorite books. It's one that I always recommend to anyone that asks me, and I think about it sometimes on a daily basis. And again, my editors, make sure you read this damn book, right? The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. Now, this is a fantastic read, and if I'm honest, really changed my life, and it changed the way I think about talent, the way I think about skill, the way I think about overnight success, the way I think about how I can improve pretty much anything that I do. Let's read the blurb, and then I'll talk about why I like it so much. So it says, talent, you've either got it or you haven't. Not true, actually. In The Talent Code, award-winning journalist Daniel Coyle draws on cutting-edge research to reveal that far from being some abstract mythical power fixed at birth, ability really can be created and nurtured. In the process, he considers talent at work in venues as diverse as music school in Dallas and a tennis academy near Moscow to demonstrate how the wiring of our brains can be transformed by the way we approach particular tasks. He explains what is really going on when apparently unremarkable people suddenly make a major leap forward. He reveals why some teaching methods are so much more effective than others. Above all, he shows how all of us can achieve our full potential if we set about training our brains in the right way. The reason I love this book is because this book taught me that within reason, I can go out and do anything. I can go out and do anything that I want. Any skill I can do. And this book taught me how to wire and think of myself to get to that stage. The Talent Code, I don't want to kind of ruin anything in the book, but the brief synopsis is there's a part of our brain called myelin. And when two neurons send connections or beg your pardon, transmissions or whatever together, myelin is the insulation that wraps around the neuron and maintains that signal. So when we do something, that myelin grows and develops and builds a thicker insulation, so that signal is never lost. And what Daniel goes on to talk about and shares some really great case studies is that actually those that have gone on to make it have developed such thick myelin around certain neurons within the brain that lo and behold, that signal cannot be lost, which means lo and behold, their skill set is far greater. He talks about the illusion of overnight success and how actually overnight success isn't a thing. And actually, a lot of success is built upon 10,000 hours of perfect practice. And I really want to underline that word of perfect practice. Daniel talks about how bad practice, practice doesn't make perfect. If you are practicing something really badly, really wrongly, you're not going to make perfect. You've got to practice perfectly to get perfect because that's going to maintain those neurons in there. He talks about the Bronte sisters and how they were an overnight success with their array of novels and Novolia. Is Novolia even a term? Who's ringing me? But actually, really what does happen is they spent years writing short stories at home in their family home before those books and novels were further released. He talks about dancers, tennis players, and all sorts. So, listen, go buy The Talent Code, give it a read. Like I say, it's a great way for you to understand how your brain works and understand what those how you develop those skills and become good at things. So what we got, we're 5 in, we've got another 5 left. Now, some of these, to be fair, a lot of them I've already recommended throughout the Sales Circle podcast anyway, but you're going to love them all the same. My next book is a fond favourite, and I know I've shouted this out very recently on the podcast. Selling the Wheel by Jeff Cox and Howard Stevens. I love this book, and if you watch the episode where we recommended it, the reason I love it is because it's a story. It's a parable. It's not a sales book where we are, I did this, I did that, so you must do this, or this case study says this, so do this. It's a story. And although I'm sure there's some research and knowledge there, it's a story that you can follow and is easy to follow. Basically, it follows a story. Let me just get the blurb up. So it follows a story. Let me just get the names right. So Max and his wife, Minnie, learn what it takes to market the wheel. They then bring on Ozzy the Oracle, and they look at 4 essential selling styles: the closer, the wizard, the relationship builder, and the captain and crew. And throughout the story, basically, you know, people have invented the wheel. Minnie and Max, I think their names are that I just said. To then try and sell the wheel to an entity, a crowd that don't have any use for the wheel. They've not seen the wheel. They've not understood the wheel. They can't see the benefits of the wheel. And it talks about how these different styles of salespeople, or these different sales techniques, matter differently at different parts of the marketplace. So when we cross-relate this to Crossing the Chasm, that other book we mentioned recently, you can kind of cross-correlate how different parts of that cycle work better for different salespeople, right? Or different methods of selling. It's a great way to read a sales book without feeling like you are getting too heavy, because it goes into a story. You just kind of forget that you're reading a business book, and it's a lovely way of doing it. So Selling the Wheel by Jeff Cox and Howard Stevens. Do go give it a read. I absolutely love that one. I mentioned towards the start of the podcast about a book that did genuinely change my life. And the story goes, and I know I've shared this recently, is that I'd fallen into sales like many people do. Got a sales job. It turns out I was good at it. I'll be honest, didn't really understand why I was good at it. I was just going through the motions. Didn't understand, you know, what I was saying, how I was saying things, or anything else in between. But I was good at it. And at the time, I didn't have much disposable income, right? I'd gotten out of a relationship, lumbered with debt that she'd left me. And I was literally living, you know, hand to fist, is that the term? You know, pennies in the bank account, to be fair, minus pounds, to be fair, in the bank account. You know, not much disposable income. And everyone kept talking about this book in the office, normally as a joke. And I was like, maybe I should read it. Maybe if I want to take sales seriously, I should read it. And I went on eBay, found a second-hand copy, and I went ahead and bought it. Now, unfortunately, I gave my original copy away years ago to an up-and-coming salesperson who was working in my team. And of course, I invested in a new copy. And it has genuinely started all this. Reading this book started buying, you know, led me to this journey of buying everything, right? And that book, without further ado, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Again, if you're going to look at any book, get this one, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People is a phenomenon. It's a sensation. It's been bought by millions of people worldwide with numerous editions. And if memory serves me right, I think I got it wrong last time. I think it was 1920 it first came out. No, it wasn't that old, was it? I remember tripping up on this originally. Published in 1937 originally. So some of you may be going, well, it's old. What can I learn from this book that's going to, you know, help me today in today's modern world of selling? This book stands out. This book will help you to stand out, especially whilst we're living in this digital age of automation and AI and all that nonsense, right? This book will lead you to success. That's not what I just said, but it's on the blurb as well. It will show you how to make friends quickly and easily, win people over to your way of thinking, improve your conversation skills and become more entertaining, and acquire new clients and customers. So whether you are a salesperson, a business owner, a professional, a marketer, if you take on board, the principles that this book talks about, you're going to do absolutely well. Let's not beat around the bush. Your job as a marketer, your job as a salesperson, is to influence people. Your job as a marketer or a salesperson is to persuade, to influence. We know that through sales and marketing, if we build fans, if we build a fan base, then we're more likely to get repeat business, recommendations, referrals, and everything else in between. Remember that quote. If we make a sale, we'll make a commission. But if we make a friend, we make a living. You need to win friends and you need to influence people. So make sure you grab that bad boy. Now, this one is one, but I say this about all of them now, don't I? This one really stands the test of time. I talk about this in a lot of my sales training. I preach it to my team in the office a lot, so I know my editors are going, oh, not again. But this, once again, changed my way of thinking. Now, as I said earlier, your job as a salesperson, your job as a marketer, your job as a business owner, at times is to influence and persuade people, whether that be to influence our next customer to buy from us, whether it's to influence that next employee to come and join the team, whether it's to, persuade the husband or the wife to try that new wine bar that's opened up, right? Our job is to influence people. And Robert Cialdini put together a book called Influence, which is the psychology of persuasion. And I absolutely love this book. Robert Cialdini, as a guy, is a bit of a nutter in the best way possible. But genuinely a fantastic book. And I know there has been multiple books and secondary books there. But what Robert Cialdini talks about, which I love, is the 6 principles of influence. And through research, through studying, through case studies, Robert discovered these 6 principles of influence, right? These 6 things that the most influential people in the world do to influence and persuade us. Those being reciprocation, commitment and consistency, social proof, likability or liking, authority and scarcity. And in theory, if you do those 6 things, and in multitudes of those 6 things, you are going to influence people to take the actions that you need to. So again, if you work in sales, you've got to influence people. If you work in marketing, you've got to influence people. This is the book for you. I feel like I'm saying this a lot about all of the books now, but if there is one book that you're going to add to your book list, make sure it's that one. Now, the next book, as you've taken away, I love a story. Okay, I was brought up reading, had a great reading age at a young age, and I think that is down to my parents reading to me time and time again. Beyond that, I always, God blimey, I always love a story, whether that be in a movie or in a video game that I'm playing. The story for me is the thing that really sets it apart. I always much prefer stories when it comes to sales and business book, as opposed to those, I did this, I did that, so you must do this, yada, yada, yada. And the next book I'm going to recommend to you is called The Extremely Successful Salesman Club by Chris Murray. Now, Chris is a good friend of mine. I've spoken with him a number of times on a variety of podcasts. He's a great guy based in the UK, a fantastic sales trainer, and of course, a sales author. And The Extremely Successful Salesman Club is a story, it's a tale, it's a fable, it's a parable about the Extremely Successful Salesman's Club and the lessons that are learned within those deep walls. And I'll tell you what, I'll read the blurb, shall I? It makes a bit more sense. In the heart of Victorian London, on a small 3-legged table, locked away in a circular room deep within the walls of the most elite and important private gentlemen's club of them all, sits an ancient manuscript that spells out the secret word of success. During the summer of 1887, Barnabas Cruz sends his younger nephew an intriguing invitation to join him, become a member of the Extremely Successful Salesman's Club. And through the journey and the story and so on and so forth, there's I've got a signed copy. Look at that, completely forgot. I got a signed copy. How lovely is that? It talks about various rules throughout the salesman's journey: design your reputation, regain the tenacity of a child, listen as if your life depending on it, embrace fundamentals, plot your course, and so on and so forth. But for me, it's a fantastic read simply because it's a story. You learn through it and you get engrossed in the story, and therefore the lessons become a bit more subliminal, but they go a bit deeper. And finally, because we are nearly end at the episode, I'm going to reveal my final book. Now, I feel a bit of a fraud because I'm sure we did this as our book recommendation of the week not too long ago. But again, this book changed my life. Without this book, I wouldn't have gone on to become a butler in the buff, a naked butler, or certainly would have, made my confidence not so high. And this book allows me to network well. It allows me to, build connections well, build friendships well, build connections well. And the book I'm going to recommend is The Game by Neil Strauss. Again, when I recommended this a few weeks ago, does it stand the test of time? Will people in this modern day way of thinking think it's quite misogynistic? potentially, but this book was written, 2000s, I think. And maybe 2005, so 2000s. But the hints and the tips that you can pick from this are fantastic. To be clear, this is not a sales book, okay? But what this is a book about a journalist who infiltrates a pickup artist gang, right? And a guy called Mystery who used to be paid to teach people how to pick up women, or at the very least talk to women. And Neil Strauss goes on a journey to become the world's leading pickup artist, an average guy, no different to you and I. And he goes on to create this persona called Style, who can pick up any woman. The reason I recommend this book to salespeople, not only is it a fun read, it is quite an enjoyable read. It's a fun read and talks a lot about emotion, gets us thinking about love, desire, lust, and everything else in between. But actually, deep down, it does also teach about how we can approach people in networking events, how we can talk to people, how we can open conversations, how to get out of bad conversations, and so on and so forth. So if you are going to a lot of networking events, if you are struggling with opening people up, if you're struggling with confidence when it comes to conversations, whether that is business or within love, I don't know, then the game is for you. Well, listen, what a great episode that's been. I hope it's not been too boring. We'll make sure we share, and obviously the editors listening in, let's make sure we share the links to these books in the show notes below so that you can pick up your own copies. If I were to pick a top three, I don't know why I've just asked myself that question, to be fair. I would recommend that you read 100% Influence by Robert Cialdini. Absolute must, I feel. I would say potentially The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle as well, because once again, once you understand how to learn new skills and once you understand how to develop those skills, then you can do anything, right? So Influence, The Talent Code, and let's go. It's got to be How to Win Friends and Influence People, the world's leading, sales book. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of The Sales Circle. As always, it's a pleasure. As a reminder, we record these episodes every week and they come out every Thursday. So if you are looking to increase your sales, boost your sales, then make sure you hit that follow button for me, or subscribe if you're watching over on YouTube. I can't wait to see you next week. And until then, all the best. Boom. And that's it for another episode of The Sales Circle. Make sure you hit that follow button, join us over on social media, and we'll see you next week.